The Boston Massacre. Everything you need to know. On the same day that Parliament repealed most of the Townshend Acts, a bloody riot exploded in Boston. The arrival of British troops had caused tensions to rise, and the relationship between Bostonians and Redcoats, as the British soldiers were called, had deteriorated so badly that one spark sent the city into chaos. What was that spark? British soldiers in Boston, the most rebellious city in the American colonies, had certainly been an unwelcome sight. Soldiers and civilians cursed each other in the streets, and clashes were consistent and often violent. British soldiers, finding themselves in a hostile environment, began viewing Bostonians as even more rebellious than the Irish. They called Bostonians Yankees as an insult. A harsh fact that British soldiers experienced was meager pay. Faced with such a poor salary and boredom, many sought to take on a second job. Male Bostonians resented the fact that 600 soldiers stationed in the city were competing with them for labor and the attention of the ladies. On March the 5th, 1770, a lone British soldier stood guard outside the customs house. It was a cold evening, and he gazed out at the filthy piles of snow and ice, patiently awaiting the end of his shift. A young colonist exited a tavern, and he and the soldier exchanged insults. The drunken colonial approached the soldier and poked him in the chest. The soldier retaliated by clubbing the man with the butt of his musket. As the colonist fell to the ground, he shouted. Taverns emptied as colonists, many of them drunk, gathered around the lone guard. 6 more British soldiers rallied to provide support, and the 7 men found themselves surrounded by an angry mob that soon numbered in the hundreds. Someone began ringing a church bell, adding more noise and attention to the mayhem. The colonists began pelting the soldiers with chunks of ice and snowballs. Crispus Attucks, a mulatto of Native American and African descent, walked right up to within inches of a soldier's bayonet and dared him to fire. A British officer ordered the town magistrate to read the riot act, but he refused out of fear for his life. Someone in the crowd struck a soldier with a club, sending him to the snowy ground. The man sprang to his feet and was struck a second time. He raised his musket and pulled the trigger. The other soldiers took it as a signal and fired into the crowd. A great screech came from the mob as bullets cut their way through. Crispus Attucks and 4 other Bostonians fell dead, while 6 more were wounded. The mob fled in all directions. For several hours, the city teetered on the brink of a bloodbath. Citizens were outraged, and Boston's Sons of Liberty, who were all armed, outnumbered the Redcoats 5-1. The colonists' rage subsided only after Lieutenant Governor Thomas Hutchinson promised to try the soldiers for murder. The event became known as the Boston Massacre. Paul Revere created an elaborate print titled The Bloody Massacre, perpetuated in King Street, and the Sons of Liberty used as a powerful piece of propaganda. British troops were withdrawn from the city, and those involved were put on trial for murder. Sam Adams was the driving force behind the trial, and, in an odd coincidence, his cousin John Adams defended the 7 soldiers. John Adams argued that emotions cannot override facts, and that the soldiers had acted in self-defense. They were found not guilty, but 2 had their thumbs branded for killing people in the crowd by accident. All of the soldiers had to leave the American colonies for their own protection.